begin with an apology. Those of you who are eager and waiting to hear a wonderful dissertation on the Holy Trinity, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to talk and preach about Trinity today. I've done it for 24 years. So let me give you the simple Trinity explanation this morning. You ready? Okay, now watch carefully. You ready? With me? Don't do this at home, okay? It could get you in some serious trouble. What I want to talk to you about today is about what's happening to me next week, or this week. This week. On Saturday of this week, I will be flying to Glasgow, Scotland, and then I will travel down to a town called Oban, where I will cross on a ferry to the Isle of Mull, and then I will cross the Isle of Mull on a bus on a one-lane road to another ferry that will take me across a small inlet, I shouldn't say inlet, small, whatever that is, between two islands. Somebody here knows what that is. To the island of Iona. Iona is spelled I-O-N-A. It's not Ionia. That's here in New York. This is one of the southern Hebrides. Scotland has those islands to the west of it. It is a small island, and I'll be on the island for 8 days. I am taking a pilgrimage with 34 people, some of them that I know. This will be my third pilgrimage to Iona. It is not an easy place to get to. So when you go, it's always good to stay a while. And I will be there 8 days. If you're not familiar with what a pilgrimage is, it is an intentional journey. An intentional journey usually made sometimes singly, but usually in a group, to a place that is known to be, or has a reputation for being, called a thin place. A thin place, according to the Celtic traditions, is simply a place, a geographical location, where heaven and earth seem to touch. Hence the name Thin Place. And when I go on pilgrimage, and I've gone with a group in the 3 times that I've gone, there are 2 things that I always pay attention to. First one is, what is the Holy One? What is God inviting me to see in the time that I am away? And the second one is a question of, where have I met the Holy One along the way? The first time I went to Iona, I was amazed at the small island and wondered how I was going to be able to stay there for a week when you could walk the island in an afternoon. What I found was that there were lots of things to see if only I took my time to look at it. And it was in that that I understood that I was being invited to look at the small things. Birds, stones. Stones are an incredible part of the island of Iona. The stones on Iona go back billions of years. And everyone picks some up and brings them home. And nobody on Iona is saying, please don't take our stones. There's plenty to go around. The island is actually grounded on some very ancient strains of marble and a couple of other kinds of stones that are only really found in that area. I had a bunch that I brought with me back home. And I met a jeweler from the southern tier who makes rings out of Iona stones. And I had him make a ring for me. I asked him which of the stones would he use, and he looked at them, and he picked this one black stone up that had a little white band around it that didn't look like any of the polished marble that I had ever seen. And he said, this one will surprise you. And so when he made the ring for me, the ring which I'm wearing today, and which you may have seen me wear around here on occasion, this ring does not look like that stone at all. In fact, it has the green marble and the white marble and the bloodstone that are part of the island in it. It was a surprise to me, coming from one of the little things I saw along the way. The question about where I met the Holy One, well, there's no question in my mind. It was on the very next to the last day that we were there. We took a walk to a bay called Columbus Bay, and it is at the southernmost part of the island. And it's filled with stones like this, but it's an incredibly dramatic scene of the Atlantic crushing up on that shore. And it was raining, and it was over stony and difficult ground, and I was asked to be near the end of the group to make sure that any of the stragglers didn't get lost. We had several women who were aged and were finding it difficult to make it along the way. And in the midst of all of that, there were 3 younger women who started tending to the 3 older women that were on the walk. And as I walked behind them, that's when I knew I was seeing Jesus present in the attention and tenderness of care that these women had for each other. The second trip I made to Iona was in July of 2007. There were 14 pilgrims who went, and as rector of St. John's in Canandaigua, I brought these young people and a few of us older folks to Iona for the pilgrimage so that they could experience in their high school years a place of this incredible magnitude, this thin place. I was looking forward to walking to Columbus Bay on the next to last day. I planned the pilgrimage around the model of the first pilgrimage I was on. And as the day broke and it was raining, you wonder why Scotland is so green. There you have it. We made our way to the chapel, and we're about ready to go on our walk. I had injured my right heel a couple of days before that. And as I was walking to the chapel, it started to give me more problems. And when we got to the chapel and I was commissioning all of us to go on this walk, I realized that I would not be able to make that walk. That I couldn't go the miles I needed to go and be on that pilgrimage with them. And so I offered them blessing, and I began to cry because I wanted so much to be with them. I knew what the experience was like to go to that very, very thin place, Columbus Bay, and I was not going to be able to do that. Well, I should have known that it was a unique experience that I was going to go through also. Because as I started to make my way back to the hostel that we were staying at on the other end, on the north end of the island, one of the young people came out to me. First of all, he asked me if I would take something back to the hostel, and I said, sure, I'm happy to do that. And then he looked at me, and he could see the tears running down my face. And he hugged me. This is a guy who doesn't hug. And so I turned and walked back to the hostel, the rain coming down and the tears flowing with it. When I got back to the hostel, I walked in. I thought I was all alone because we had the place to ourselves. But when we left the hostel in the morning, the cleaning crew came in. And they were three young people, Mark, David, and Elise. And so when I walked in, I could hear a vacuum cleaner going, and I could hear some movement around in the hostel. And I said, hello, I'm here. And they came out and met me. And I don't know how to explain this, but I don't remember going from the entry hall into the dining room. I just remember that they almost carried me into that place to sit me down. They made me a good cup of tea, which is always a good thing. And they sat with me and listened while I cried and talked about my inability to make the final pilgrimage walk. It was an incredibly powerful, nurturing moment. And as Mark and David went back to do their work, Elise sat with me. She was a young seminarian in the Church of England. And she sat with me and we talked, and she said, what is it that you're missing the most? I said, I'm missing being with those young people, but I'm also missing finding another stone. I said, I'm wearing the stone I found in 2000, and now I'd like to go back. And she said, wait. She went back to her room and she came over to me and she placed in my hand a large, translucent, greenish yellow marble stone. And she said, I go to the beach in Columbus Bay every week that I'm here, because I'm here the entire summer. And she said, when this one literally tapped me on my heel, she said, I turned around and there it was, this large stone. And she placed it in my hand and she said, now it's yours. I said, she said, don't say anything. You don't need to say anything. That stone, I said, I will give to someone else. I did give that stone to someone else. Gave it to my wife, Linda, when she was ill.